Hey there, kiddos, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Uncle Frank, and that you are having a great day. And today, I'm recording a new video because the one I made last night, much like a pet hamster, suddenly vanished. And much like my pet hamster from 4th grade, I don't anticipate that I will see it again. So, in today's video, I'm going to be sitting back in my very squeaky chair, relaxing and having a little conversation with all of you guys about Pokemon, Star Wars, and the fact that reality is rarely what you want and things don't last as long as you'd like. This video was inspired by a comment I received on a previous video where I was talking about, I think it was the He-Man video I was actually talking about, but one of the comments I received was something along the lines of, Pokemon's not going anywhere. Pokemon's the biggest IP in the world. It makes so much money, and the company behind it is amazing, and the Japanese are great, and all that jazz. And while this video is not an attack on that individual, after all, I do highly value all of your guys' input, I do want to point some things out. And hopefully reel in a bit of, well, understanding from those of you out there who think that Pokemon or Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or whatever will last forever. Whatever your favorite brand of choice is. You see this. This is Star Wars, the original trilogy. 3-part DVD set. Episode 4, 5, and 6, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. 3 phenomenal films. George Lucas's magnum opus, in fact, if I were to be so bold. I know that some people like Raiders of the Lost Ark more. I'm not one of those people. So, the Star Wars trilogy, kickstarting the Star Wars franchise, and giving us what might have been the first, cinematic cultural sensation, to my knowledge. There might have been something before then, but Star Wars really strikes me as the first breakout franchise to completely grip pop culture and the cultural zeitgeist of America. The first Star Wars film was so popular that the second and third were basically guaranteed. The Star Wars fan base exploded in size throughout the 70s, 80s, and yes, even the 90s. It created a multimedia franchise consisting of comics, books, video games, radio, I think there was a radio show. There were cartoons. There were all kinds of crazy stuff, all before the 2000s, all before the prequel trilogy ever hit. Star Wars was frickin' massive, okay? To say that Star Wars had a cultural impact on America would be an understatement. I mean, it's got one of the most successful trading card sets of all time was the original Star Wars set from back in the day. In an era where people were super focused on sports cards as the go-to trading card, Star Wars cards exploded in popularity because it was Star Wars, because everybody loved Star Wars. It didn't matter if you were a man, a woman, an aging fossil, or a newborn child. If you knew about Star Wars, you were a fan of Star Wars, okay? It was everywhere. And when the sequel trilogy came around, or the prequel trilogy, Star Wars Episode 1, 2, and 3, when those came around, it was huge. Sure, it was not received as well as the original trilogy. There were complaints. But it reignited what was a fading franchise for a bit. There was a bit of a lull towards the end of the 90s, and then the prequel trilogy came around and kickstarted even more stuff. 2 new cartoons happened because of the prequels. More games came out, more books, all kinds of cool stuff tying into the new era of Star Wars, and it was everywhere. It was a smash hit, and for a while, okay, the Star Wars series, the Star Wars brand, was the biggest in existence. There was nothing that could stop it. Star Wars was huge. It was everywhere. It was dominating. Every other franchise looked at Star Wars and said, damn, why can't I be that? And then one day it all came crashing down. One day, Star Wars went from the biggest and greatest IP on the planet to something that nowadays, in 2026, faces a real decent chance of extinction. There is apparently a new Star Wars movie coming out later this year. I was not aware of it until a few weeks ago. The Mandalorian and Grogu, I think it is. I was not aware of this film. I was under the impression The Mandalorian was a 2-season series that ended after one of the actors was like taken out back and shot by Disney. So to hear about a movie coming out, that surprised me. What surprised me even more was that there are apparently a lot of people seriously concerned that this movie could be the last one Star Wars does, just because the absolute pit that the franchise has dug itself into. What happened? One day, Star Wars was unbeatable. You couldn't go to school without talking about Star Wars with your Star Wars backpack and your Star Wars lunchbox and your Star Wars drink cup, right? And then at recess, you would share your Star Wars trading cards and your Star Wars action figures, and everyone loved them. And then now Star Wars toys sit unsold at Ollie's. Star Wars trading cards and trading card games have a very real risk of being worthless. And now the Star Wars movies, which used to be so culturally important that Americans would sell out theaters to see them, now apparently they are doing so poorly that not only am I not hearing about them, but apparently their success or failure could decide the future of the franchise. Whether or not one does well or not could end Star Wars. What happened? Well, times changed. Yes. In a analytical way, this video could be about how Star Wars was purchased by a company that had no respect for the brand, or its fans, or its history, or its lore, its writing, its sense of wonder and amazement. This could be a video where I dunk on Disney for 30 minutes. I could very easily dunk on Disney for 30 minutes and the people they put in charge of Star Wars, creating a sequel trilogy with no cohesion whatsoever, no grand plan unifying the 3 films, and how they threw out decades of Star Wars lore and love and fan approved content and all that jazz. I could do that. But instead, I'm going to say simply that time changed. And over time, things changed with Star Wars. Some things very small, and some things very large. And the belief that Star Wars is the only franchise that this could happen to is foolish, in my opinion. There are plenty of things that have been super popular once upon a time, that were universally beloved, that had over time degraded, and either because of corporate meddling or shifting fads or whatever have you, are no longer popular, are no longer desired by the masses. Once upon a time, Western films were everywhere in Hollywood. People loved their cowboys. Sword and sandal films were everywhere for a while. People loved their Greek fantasy films for a while. Those faded away. Those faded from popularity. There are video game franchises that once upon a time held like the gamer culture. Like they held them really close to their chest, like with love and reverence. Halo comes to mind as a game series that once upon a time, like I remember high school teachers taking weekends off when Halo 3 dropped. Okay? Like, I remember Halo 2 LAN parties, or something like, what they call LAN parties? I remember Halo 2, like, people would rent out entire buildings just to get all their friends together to play Halo 2. I remember, people freaking out about Reach when that game dropped and people got to the ending. And it became a huge thing where people were like freaking out online because they couldn't save Reach. Once upon a time, Halo was huge. Master Chief was a cultural icon, and everyone knew the songs, and the Halo theme was sung in choirs and in churches because it was just that big. And then suddenly, something changed. Assassin's Creed was one of the biggest franchises out there for video games. Assassin's Creed 1 was very well received, but 2 was amazing. Assassin's Creed 2 was so big that it had like 2 sequel games, 2 follow-up games, and a movie associated with it. I think a CGI movie. Yeah, like people loved Ezio. And the third one is my favorite, but I know that people don't like it. The fourth one was pretty solid. But, you know, Assassin's Creed went from a beloved franchise to one that is mocked and derided these days. It went from a stealth action game to a fucking RPG for some godforsaken reason. Can't think of why they would do that. You know, things change. Over time, small changes pile up and cultural expectations shift. Once upon a time, Pokemon was a very simple franchise. You had some video games, you had a cartoon, you had a movie, and you had some cards. And nowadays, Pokemon is huge, multimedia franchise, just like it was back then, but bigger. It's got a theme park, it's got dedicated stores, it's got all kinds of cool promotional items. People will freak out and get into fist fights to acquire more Pokemon, just like how people got into fist fights to acquire more Beanie Babies back in the 90s. You know, people will, you know, people will put out loans to get Pokemon cards, like they would put out loans to get Beanie Babies. People will put insurance plans on their Pokemon cards, like they put insurance plans on their Beanie Babies. Things change. People move on, franchises shift, audiences move. And to sit there and pretend that anything, any one franchise is eternal, immortal, unmovable, indestructible, is fooling yourself. Now, this video is not me saying, Pokemon's dying! It's all going to zero, baby! No, I'm not saying that. But I am saying that things change. And to delude yourself into thinking that things can't change, that's just doing yourself a disservice. You know, I like Star Wars. I fucking love Star Wars. I rewatch these films all the time. That's why they're out here, actually. I didn't go inside to my DVD shelf to grab these. These were sitting over there by the gaming chair because I do like watching these a lot. And when I'm playing NES games, these are usually running on the background. It's either this, Conan, or the Ghost in the Shell movie. I have all of those out here right now because I love them so much. You know, I love Star Wars. And I don't want Star Wars to die. But I can't, as a fan of Star Wars, find myself all that interested in what Disney has coming for it. I know for a fact that there are people out there who are huge fans of Halo, who love all 3 Halo games and Reach. And those are the only things that they care about. They don't give a shit about anything that Microsoft has released for the franchise. And they couldn't care less if Halo lives or dies because they still have the games that they love. And guess what? The same is true for Pokemon. Pokemon is not eternal, undying, everlasting. Pokemon is not some immortal god emperor that rules over the TCG world of finance. Pokemon has fans that have not clocked in for new releases in a very long time because they don't like where the series has gone. They don't like modern cards, or they don't like modern video games, or they don't like the modern anime, which, you know, more power to them. I like all of those things. Well, I don't like the modern video games, but I like the cards and the anime. You know, things change and audiences move on. And, you know, people don't stay the same over. You think you're the same person you were 10 years ago? Do you think you'll be the same person 10 years from now? I don't think so. I very much doubt it. And if people can change, brands and IPs, which are products of people, those can change, and drastically so. Pokemon is a living creature that has changed drastically. But I suppose that's all I'm going to do for now. I'll talk to you kiddos later. Let me know what you guys think of this video in the comment section below. Like, share, and subscribe, all that jazz. Leave a comment if you agree with me or disagree with me. You guys know I like comments, and occasionally your comment might even cause a whole video to be created. Wow, good on you. Check out the Discord, the Patreon, the TCG Player Store, all that jazz. Thank you guys again for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Ciao.